To me, being an understudy means you have to be ready at a moment's notice. The whole reason that understudies exist is if a principal, something happens to them in the middle of the show, and we've got that whole show must go on mentality, that we can pull Sally from the ensemble, throw her in the costume, and the show will continue. But when you are that understudy, it's kind of a whole nother ballgame.
My name is Bella Van Oz. My role is an aerialist and performer. And the name of the role is the Gypsy Mermaid, and she doesn't have any lines or doesn't have anything to sing, but dances and does aerial acts, and it's just a super fun role for sure. Um, with this role, there has been several occasions where we've had injuries or people are sick, and I have been called in at the last second. It could be even up to an hour before show starts, where they just need coverage, and so I'm called in. And even though maybe I had something else going on that day, or maybe I wasn't mentally like prepared to do that role that day, I still come in and I do the show to the best of my ability. And it's just very important to be prepared and ready for anything.
Understudies are often thrown into that situation where it's not their best key, but that's what it has to be, whatever. It's the hardest job in showbiz. What she said about understudies was really just not well thought out, not and really I think sort of ignorant of how the business actually operates. To think that her throwing understudies under the bus was actually going to improve the situation in any kind of way. I have done it on every major contract I've ever had. From Beauty and the Beast, covering Beast and Gaston, Millie, my first Broadway show, covering Trevor and Jimmy. Second Broadway show was Curtains, covering Jason Daniely. Young Frankenstein, covering the Doctor. So the first time I ever understudied was the Beauty and the Beast tour that started in like the year 2004. I covered the Beast and Gaston. And speaking of being ready, the first time I went on was in our first city, and like I had no rehearsal. I would be backstage, and we teched and we opened in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And in that green room, they had a TV where you could see what was going on stage. So anytime that I wasn't on stage, I would be watching, and I'd be like, all right, so Beast's doing this, he's doing that. All right, cool. Like if I was able to watch, I was watching. And there were a lot of early 20 somethings on that tour. And so we were like, hey, do you want to rehearse this number like while they're doing it? And so we would do like I'd be doing Gaston and one of the Bell understudies. We'd be doing the choreo backstage, all that kind of stuff. And our final Sunday, and on Sunday before the matinee, I'm having breakfast with my friends in the hotel lobby or whatever. And my friend David was one of the swings. And he was like, oh, I got to take this call. And he runs out and he comes back and he's like, I'm on for you. And he looks at me. I was like, oh, well, maybe they're swinging me out. They're swinging me out. They're going to let me watch from the front, like shows. Yeah, all right, cool. That makes sense. So I get to the theater and they're like, so Grant's feeling lightheaded. Pretty sure he'll be fine. But we just want you to follow him, just in case. I'm following him. I'm watching him get the whole makeup thing takes an hour or whatever. And I'm just like, I'm asking him some questions here and there. We're getting into the first act, and every time he comes off stage, he's a little more winded. So end of the first act, Beast comes off stage. They like half get him out of the costume. They're putting like freaking ice on his neck and everything. The dance captain says to me, she's like, okay, so what don't you know? And I was like, well, we haven't had any rehearsal. understudy rehearsal, not one, not a minute. She's like, okay, good to know. So he comes out to do the bows at the end of that show, and he's in tears, literally in tears. He ends up going to the hospital. Turns out he has a hiatal hernia. And, as a just in case, we're like, they taught me the waltz. I had half of my understudy costumes, didn't have the whole thing. The other understudy brought me a sandwich because I was just at the theater between shows. And at one point, the PSM comes into the dressing room and he's like, look, but do you feel like, could you do it? Because if I didn't, and legally, like within union rights or whatever, I could have said, no, like, you haven't rehearsed us. Like, absolutely not. I'm not doing this. I was like, I mean, yeah, I can do it. Like, it's not going to be perfect, but I can do it. And he was like, okay. And it went like it was supposed to, but that couldn't have happened had I not been prepared enough and, maybe young and foolish enough a little bit to feel like I could do it. By the end, I had been in that show little over like a year and a quarter, like 16 months or something. And I had gone on for the Beast and Gaston about 24 times each. Some theater goers are thrilled to see understudies. And then there's another segment that gets angry about seeing understudies. Like, oh, well, I paid all this money and I'm not even seeing the person that was cast. And I think that's terrible.